Dude, I got some serious head veins going on this morning. I don't like that at all.
I thought you were gonna say I had some serious headlines. That was the biggest plot twist I've ever heard.
It's a subversion of expectations. Dude,
Yeah,
why are they
that just
doing that?
flew me for a loop, man, right there.
All right. Oh my God, dude. That is freaky looking. What do I do about that?
I don't think there's anything you can do.
They don't normally look like this, bro. There's some fucking... Dude, let me Google this real quick. I don't... Yeah, there's no fucking way.
Just Google large throbbing veiny and just see what...
Yeah, we'll see how that turns out. Fuck. All right, well, we're going all head veins, all in. In 3, 2, 1... Welcome back to another edition of People Are Terrible. On this podcast, we tackle some of the week's weird news headlines, as well as topics that each of us have brought in to discuss. Now, I've mentioned this to you guys before. If you have any topics or ideas, things that you would like to hear us discuss on the show, all you got to do, leave it down in the comment section, or you can follow us on Twitter at People Are Terrible. That is at PPLARETERRIBLE. People Are Terrible. Make sure that you're following us over there. Help us get the word out, you guys. If you are enjoying this content, make sure that you click the like button as well as share it. But I've brought a topic today that I would like to discuss, and Caleb has as well. So for my topic for this week, I want to talk about Jar Jar Binks's all of a sudden resurgence back into the cultural zeitgeist. I don't know exactly where it came from, but starting last week, Jar Jar started trending again on social media. Caleb, you've brought a topic as well.
I wanted to talk about Nancy Pelosi versus Ocasio-Cortez.
By the way, guys, that's Caleb over there, Caleb Miles. So he's kind of a regular fixture. Yeah. I'm Jeremy Branch. So thank you guys for coming by again. All right. Well, good. We're going to go.
So I wanted to say to everyone out there, if you are on audio and you do have iTunes, please go over to iTunes and subscribe and like us on there. We are on iTunes, but it seems to be our least active as far as I can tell.
And I never promote the podcast form of it, but I'm sure a lot of you guys would way rather listen to the audio. So we're up on pretty much all of your podcast apps. Make sure that you go over there. If nothing else, even if you don't listen to it, go hook us up, help us out, get the bigger, it's crazy how this works, but like the more likes, the more shares, all of that stuff you have, the more you get. People look at a podcast with very few listens, very few views, and it's hard to get the credibility off of it, you know?
Yeah, if someone has even just 1,000 views, they're going to go, oh, wait, that's way more than someone who has 100.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that would be a great way for you guys to help us if you feel so inclined. Or you could just, stick some money in my bank account. I will provide the routing number down. Well, maybe that wouldn't work out very well.
Yeah, I was like, you can provide me the account number and routing number if you want.
All right, so this week's weird news headlines, we're going to kick it off with cute bear turns deadly fast.
So pretty much this headline is a bear turns into a bear is essentially.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to oversimplify it, I guess you could say that.
Oh, yep. That seems like it being a bear. It just lunges at the car.
So I got a good jump scare out of it. I think that's the reason why I shared it. I was watching it. I got my headphones on, and I'm expecting it to happen, you know? It's like building anticipation.
Well, yeah, from the headline.
Yeah. And, lo and behold, the thing just, gets close up to the car and then just fucking lunges. Okay, you sent me a video.
So this is an older video. I don't know if you know who Khabib, I can never say his name, Nurmagomedov. He's a UFC fighter. He used to wrestle bears to train.
What
I mean, it's a small
maniac.
bear, but it's also a small child.
His prowess is impressive. The fact that the bear doesn't just straight up eat his scalp is even more impressive.
Oh yeah, like you can tell the bear is kind of playing, you know. It's
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
not trying to kill him.
Yeah.
Shocker, this guy became champion. This guy who was training as a child wrestling bears.
We're doing a Joe Rogan thing here, aren't we? We're like sitting here watching some UFC bear fighting shit. That sounds... I'm trying to think who the artist that does that song that plays on it is. It's definitely somebody. I had their album. It's all instrumental track. Wow, 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 wow. I don't know. Oh, okay. It's the XX. That's right. It's the first song on the XX's album. Dude, they're so good. Anyways.
I don't even know who that is.
I think I got more animal news. Wouldn't that be surprising?
You always bring the animal news. Like when you're in charge of news, there's like at least 2 or 3 animal stories.
Well, see, what happened was I was leaning real hard on the UFOs and the aliens, and some asshole kept calling me out about it. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll change it up. Now, apparently, this is a fucking problem. I mean, what if we're not going to talk about aliens and UFOs? What are we even doing here?
You're like, this is the Alien Animal Attack UFO podcast.
Naked Wisconsin man on acid arrested. So this was in Wisconsin. He was running naked in a parking lot. And when the cops asked him, hey, man, what are you doing out here? He says, and I quote,
"You already know, man. There's nothing wrong with this. Oh, that's what all those drugs are for. Are you really going to make a fucking deal out of this?"
Then he allegedly confessed to being on, quote, tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of acid. That's a lot of acid.
A ton of acid.
I mean, I wonder how much that is. You know, like, can you actually quantify? I mean, if every ton equals a hit of acid, he was on a ton of acid.
He was on a ton of acid. I think the exact measurement is he's on enough acid to walk naked and talk to the police and tell them he's on acid.
Correct. I like the pompousness of it, where he says, "Are you really gonna make a fucking deal out of this? Like, I'm just trying to run around naked in this parking lot."
Accusatory of them, like they're the fucking
they're the problem.
It's their problem. You're interrupting my naked time. That's what that is.
Fucking harshing my vibes, bro.
That's exactly essentially what he said.
So police sniff out a smelly suspect. According to the Huffington Post, and this is good, a man trying to elude the police in Missouri ended up betraying his own backside. Liberty Police Department officers over the weekend were searching vainly for a man wanted on a warrant charging possession of controlled substance, according to the Kansas City Star. The suspect might have gotten away if he hadn't been betrayed by his own butt. It seems that the man let out a huge fart at the wrong time, allowing officers to sniff out where he was hiding. Police didn't release the man's identity.
I picture it like in a cartoon, like where you see like a green smoke trail.
Yeah.
And they like follow it down a corridor and he's like behind a trash can.
If your fart is betraying you behind a trash can, you have a bad diet.
Well, this dude obviously has if they're able to literally go, man, what's that smell? And then follow it to where he's at. That's a pretty strong fart.
He's like, look, I don't know why you're trying to make a deal out of this. I'm on tons and tons and tons and tons of acid. I mean, I guess you can't really anticipate how bad your farts are going to smell. Maybe you would let it go. I would hold it in.
Hold it. Yeah. If I hold it in at work, you can best be sure I'm going to hold it in when a cop's by me.
Yeah.
Trying to search for me.
Now that we're moving out of the farty suspect, we're going to talk a little bit about death by metal straw. Did you hear about this?
No, but those things look dangerous as shit.
Remember, and those of you guys that are watching or listening, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about a kid who had fallen face first onto a 10-inch knife that he was playing with. This is a similar situation. A disturbing death of a woman in Britain renewed a debate that has been following the ban of plastic straws around the world. She was impaled by a metal straw after falling at her home. So she was just by herself at the house drinking whatever beverage that she had with one of those metal straws. She falls down face first, and the thing just straight up impaled her head and killed her. So, I mean, I say if they were plastic straws, it would have probably only killed like a sea turtle or a dolphin. And I mean,
but at least the turtles are safe.
If we're gonna prioritize, I mean, I don't know. Judging by my reaction in movies, I think I would rather the person die.
Oh no, hell no! I'd rather the turtle die.
That's irrational, Caleb. I don't understand.
How dare I prioritize human life over animals?
Look, there's more people. There's more people. They're more expendable, right? We've got a huge population of people. There's only a couple thousand sea turtles.
Have you ever eaten a turtle?
No.
Would you?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Okay, then still, just we'll use straws to easily kill turtles and eat them. Problem solved.
Well, you didn't ask me if I'd eat people.
You're like that too.
It depends on how you cook them. Planning the perfect murder? I say you just get a metal straw, stab the person through the fucking face, and then just lay him down face down.
Lay him down.
It was an accident. I don't know what happened. Let's go ahead and take a look at some Florida Man headlines in our Welcome to Florida segment. There you go. That was efficient.
That was a very efficient, straightforward segue. I kind of dug it.
That makes sense. All right. So, Florida officer, this ain't a fun story. This shit fucking pisses me off so bad. Florida officer frames people for meth possession. Did you hear about this guy?
No, fuck him. I should hear the story before I say fuck him, but just from the headline.
Florida authorities have arrested former Jackson County deputy accused of making false arrests after planting drugs on drivers, police say in a statement. The allegations have prompted prosecutors to drop charges in scores of cases. Zachary Wester, 26, was taken into custody in his Crawfordville home about 20 miles south of Tallahassee on Wednesday, according to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. He's being held, whatever. He stands charged with felony counts of racketeering, official misconduct, fabricating evidence, possession of a controlled substance, and false imprisonment. He also faces misdemeanor charges of perjury, possession of a controlled substance, and possession of drug paraphernalia. At least 11 people are suing him in federal court because of violations as well. That's 100 plus cases that are having to be tossed out. Who knows how many of them were legitimate arrests versus how many other people didn't get their cases tossed out. This guy was pulling people over, turning off his body cam, planting drugs in the car after he would pull them over and say, "I smell marijuana," turn off his body cam, stick bags of meth into their car, and then magically discover them and take these people to prison.
What was his motivation? Like, was he just trying to fill his quota, or what? Like, I don't understand it.
That's a good question. But then if I don't think quotas really technically exist, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, is it just a bullshit thing that's like people believe in?
I've known a couple of cops before, and they said it wasn't exactly that. I think there is still some sort of minimum thing that you have to do to be performing your duties. Otherwise, you could just be like cruising around all day, but I don't think it's actually a quota. You know what? Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's find out real quick, because yes, I've always heard of quotas. Police.
Yeah, it's one of those things like, it's one of those things I just, it shows my ignorance. I just accepted it, and I probably should have looked into it more.
Okay, so here we go. In 2016, ticket quotas are commonly defined as any establishment of a predetermined or specified number of traffic citations an officer must issue in a specified time. Some police departments may set, quote, productivity goals, but deny specific quotas. So it does sound like they don't like the word quota, but that they have quotas. So I think we're both kind of right on that.
Okay, so they have them, but they just hate the word quota.
It's what it sounds like.
Talk about their quota.
Correct. Okay. So, I don't know. I mean, why would you have to go so aggressively when other people didn't? As far as what his actual motivation is, dude, that's 100 people Some of them spent a year in prison. Some of them lost custody of their kids. They're sitting here just fighting it. It damn sure ain't mine. I swear it's not mine. I swear it's not mine. And of course, judges don't believe that shit. They're always going to take the side of the officer. Well, they started to do investigating on the guy after so many claims and how many people he keeps busting with meth. They searched his patrol vehicle. He had like 10 bags of meth on him, a bunch of paraphernalia pieces, just so that he could stick it in people's vehicles, I guess.
That's infuriating. You know, like these are people's lives you're playing with. And like you said, people lose, you know, marriages over this. They lose kids. They lose time of their life, you know?
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I think it's disgusting, you know? So I don't even want to like make jokes about it because it's so disgusting.
Yeah, it really is a shame. And I mean, if it's one person that did it, you know, there's a potential that other people are doing it. I mean, I've heard of cops planting drugs on people before, just like we've heard of serial killers before. I don't understand their motivation, but they do it, and they obviously get some sort of sick gratification out of it. And yeah, I mean, not even talking about the more, you know, like the psychological damage that can happen to people when they're in prison. It's like, no, they lost out on wages. They could have potentially lost custody of their kids. There's so many like actual cause and effect things that you can quantify that people have lost or having to give up because of just this sick need for power, I guess. And it just it's a shame. I feel for all the people that have been through that. But have you heard of cops planting drugs before?
I've heard of it, like not in my personal life. Obviously, I've heard of it in like news stories. I've never personally known anyone who it's happened to. I've known people who've claimed it, who they were full of shit. Yeah. But I've never actually. I'm assuming it's an extremely low percentage, but one guy can do a lot of damage, as this story proves.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I do always want to come back to the fact that I don't think all cops are bad. I think that power has a certain allure. Like, it's hard to, like, not be tempted by the ring or whatever from Lord of the Rings. It's like, once you get that power, it's hard to not abuse it.
I forget who said it, but they were talking, they said, power does not change your character. It amplifies the character you already have, power and money. They say if you're a bad person and you get power, you're going to be a bad person with power.
Yeah,
if you're
it's actually a good point.
You get power, you're going to be a good person. I do, however, think because of the nature of a lot of times power and the stuff you have to do to get it, more bad people tend to rise to the top.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I definitely can see a lot of truth in that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next story. Hopefully it's a little bit less grim. Okay, yeah, this is a good one. A 75-year-old Florida man saves his dog from alligator death roll. Man, Florida, dude, I'm telling you, the alligator shit is nonstop. And when I went and saw Crawl yesterday, it's a Category 5 hurricane coming through South Florida. The girl goes to University of Florida, and she's going to see if her dad is okay, and ends up getting stuck in this storm. All these crazy alligator attacks, and I'm like, this is almost going on outside, like right now. Like, this is some true to life shit. There's that tropical storm Barry that's kind of bearing down on the Gulf Coast right now. We've been hit by serious hurricanes, and me and Caleb talk about alligator attacks enough that it's like, man, this shit is an epidemic.
Dude, it's constant. It blows my mind how much Florida news has to do with these dinosaurs running around attacking people.
It is crazy. And, you know, like, you kind of joked a little bit ago, like, when you've gone through the weird news, there was only sometimes like 5 updates since the previous week. You know, they're like adding on a little bit of stories at a time because there's not all that much weird news apparently going on at any given time. And yeah, sure enough, if it's Florida, there's going to be a gator involved, like at least 25% of the time.
Yeah, in some way, shape, or form. If they're not attacking, they're getting attacked, or someone's doing something weird with them.
Keeping it as a pet and feeding it bagels.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so a 75-year-old Palm Harbor man says he fought off an alligator after it came out of his pond behind his home and grabbed his daughter's golden retriever by the leg. He sees this gator come out, and it grabs the dog by the hind leg, and he goes over and starts hitting it and kicking it And he says he was squealing a good bit when the thing grabbed him. Me, I'm a nervous wreck. I go up and slip and fall on my rear end, and the two of us are tugging. Alligator is going one way, I'm going the other. Then he says he starts kicking it in the face, and the thing opens its mouth real wide and backed up a little. That's when he grabbed his dog and took off. And the dog, OC, is expected to make a full recovery.
That's insane to me that it didn't just, grab it, do the death roll, and rip off its leg.
Yeah, my buddy Holden, when we went and saw the movie yesterday, he's like, do gators always do that roll? And I'm like, yeah, 100%. And he's like, is it to disorient them? I'm like, no, it's to dismember them. It's to freaking rip their limbs off, you know?
Have you seen the video of the gator doing it to another alligator?
I think you showed it to me.
Yeah,
and I thought it was crazy. Yeah, man.
It literally, and I'm assuming that skin's tough and everything on a gator. It takes that leg off like it's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're a dog person.
Uh-huh.
So, if heaven forbid this were to happen, would you have the balls to run up and save your dog?
I 100% think I would. I 100% think I would. And there's a big reason why is I look at alligators as big, stupid lizards. I think that you could get over on one as long as you're not, like, putting yourself in the position of prey. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going at it. Now, I don't know if I would straight up go in with no sort of, like, stick or something to whack it with. I'm not going into, like we've joked about before. Yeah, I'm not going Russian kid fucking training for the MMA with this thing. I get it in the death roll. I just start fucking rolling that thing around in the grass. Yeah, I don't know, man. I would like to think I would, but my first instinct would be look around, find something you can use as a spear or to bludgeon it with, and then go from there.
100% being honest, I would chicken out. I'd be like, sorry, like that sucks, but you gotta go, dog. Now, if it was a person getting attacked, I would like to think I'd have the balls to rush in, especially if it's someone I knew. But a dog, I probably would just be like, sorry, man.
So, and I understand that 100%. Is a human life worth the same? I mean, we kind of talked about that before. I don't think so. But you've never encountered an alligator before, I'd imagine.
No, I've seen them at zoos, and they're terrifying. So that's also another reason.
And I'm much more familiar with them. I think in the course of my life, separate from zoos, I've probably seen... Well, there's probably been 10 to 15 incidents where I saw alligators, including one time when I saw probably, no exaggeration, 50 alligators all at one time just off the interstate on the Florida Turnpike.
Sounds terrifying.
It's crazy. They're nuts, but I think the exposure to them, I'm just like, yeah, they're just big animals,
I would assume so, because for me, like, that just sounds terrifying because I've never seen one that wasn't behind glass.
Right.
And so for me, I'd be like, holy crap, I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I saw a really cool video. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the podcast right now. I just thought it was so crazy. There is a dog right on the coast of a beach. And some sort of large shark, maybe a 6-foot shark, maybe a 8-foot shark, somewhere in between, rolls up on this dog out of nowhere and goes to attack the dog. There's like 6 other dogs on the beach, and they see it happen, and they straight up jump the shark. Like, they all get out in the water, and they're barking, and they're nipping at it and shit. It ends up fucking getting out of Dodge and hauling ass out of there. So those dogs, like, had each other's back. I thought that was really cool.
That's crazy to think. I mean, it makes sense. Dogs can be, they're pack animals. They can be pretty vicious. Like, if you ever see wild dogs take down a wildebeest, they're terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You look at them as being so nice. Like, I don't know. Like, that's the kind of stuff, that predatory behavior is something you would be more likely to see in cats, but not protecting their own. I think it's interesting just because they're, like, the same species that they would go and fucking jump in and put themselves in danger for another one,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because you think they would just be like, yeah, screw that. It's not directly my pack.
Yeah.
But yeah. It's pretty amazing, fascinating stuff.
Pretty cool video. All right, well, Florida woman arrested after her daughter licks tongue depressor and puts it back at the doctor's office. So this opens up the bigger conversation about this fucking ice cream challenge. This has been a big week on the internet. What are your thoughts about this ice cream challenge, man?
It's stupid, it's immature, and I'm super happy that the girl who apparently started it did get arrested for it.
What kind of charge, what kind of punishment do you think a person that does that should be subjected to, or should be what would be equal punishment?
Honestly, it could go up to, I have weird feelings about this. So it could go up to a few years in prison, because I don't know if you remember, I think it was in the 80s, the Tylenol thing, where like people died from people tampering with Tylenol.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and this girl, I believe, had the flu at the time she did it, too, the ice cream, or was just getting over it. She could have given that to an elderly person or a child. That flu kills people in certain age groups,
Yes.
And I don't know what the exact. I mean, but tampering with food and drug is a serious. I believe it might even be a federal crime.
And I think so. This so it started with this one girl, and then copycats started springing up everywhere. There was actually a guy in like Louisiana that did it to a carton of Bluebell. Supposedly he had bought the ice cream immediately afterwards, so he just kind of did it for the viral prank of it. However, he didn't own the ice cream when he licked it, so he still got arrested. There's been
somebody did mouthwash. Did you see?
Yeah, that was disgusting. The girl starts swishing it around and then spits it back into the bottle.
Yeah, apparently she is a like big following on Twitter. I'm like, go arrest her.
And then, yeah, well, and that's the thing, is like, you can't be putting it out there to where there are a bunch of copycats, whether or not each of these individuals deserves punishment on their own. The fact that they are like putting it out there to the world, it sets an example. It's like, if you do this, you're going to get arrested. And I think they're really being harder on these people to prevent other people from thinking they're going to get a pass on it.
And I think that's smart. I think we need to stomp it out very quickly. I just hate this whole doing things for likes and all that. We put a product out every week, and yeah, I wish it got more views than it did, obviously. Not that I don't appreciate it. I appreciate every single person who listens and watches. The couple hundred that we have across multiple platforms. I appreciate every single one of you. I would never do anything to be an ass myself, look stupid, or do something, more importantly, that is harmful to other people, just for a little social media clout. I feel like that is such a weird thing that is, I feel it is our generation, but more the generation below us.
Yeah, for sure. I have a kind of unconventional way of dealing with this. Like the girl, I don't know why her mother got arrested for it. I guess I don't know the specific details of that story. And then there's a woman who, she's a business owner. She worked next door to an ice cream store, and supposedly they said she might have been getting jealous because of the amount of business that this ice cream place is getting. So she went over there, she peed, she spat, and she wiped her hands in the ice cream, which is super disgusting. But I hate the thought, like that lady, that was some malicious, vindictive shit. She should probably get in trouble. These kids, though, that go and do some dumb shit like that, I say you put it, like, we're going to pull 10 random people off the street, and you're going to have your eyes, like, opened up like Clockwork Orange, and you're going to have to let these strangers spit straight into your eyeball. Like, random, like, kind of like Russian roulette. Like, we're not saying any of these people do have anything or that they don't have anything. We have no idea. But you're going to have to take your chances, just like all these other people did. And that's how I think you deal with it. I like the very
unconventional justice. I'm with it.
Yeah. And, talk about getting some headlines, talk about getting some attention like that. Be the judge that has a person line up like they're going to be stoned and then just have everybody spit into their eyeball.
I think that would send a message to people.
Yeah, teach you motherfuckers to do that kind of stuff, because it is, in a way, it's kind of biological warfare if you want to be super, That's
the thing, is like I feel weird asking for like criminal time for kids doing pranks. I really do, because we've all done dumb shit.
Right.
But when you look at other cases of like people have died from stuff like this, and we need a culture that maybe damns this more. And it seems like, for me, what I saw, the very little bit I'm on social media, I did see overwhelmingly like damnation of this, condemnation of it, you
Right.
know?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see anyone like, oh, this is cool, but I feel we live in a time where even bad attention is still attention.
Totally agree. All right, let's transition out of that and let's talk a little bit about AOC calling Nancy Pelosi racist.
Oh man, this is the gift that just keeps on giving. So, as people don't know, if they are been living on a rock, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's what the ultra progressive social media wing of the Democrats. It's the young Democratic movement.
And she is a congresswoman, correct?
Congresswoman, yeah.
Okay.
Pelosi is the speaker, and there's been tension between these two for a while.
Well, also, first off, and you'll probably circle around to this, but AOC is like freshman. Like, she's just now coming into Congress. Nancy Pelosi's been a member of politics for decades, probably since the late 70s, early 80s.
Skull and bones. Like, she has been around through it all.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, little aside. Let's get back into it.
And Pelosi has been repeatedly calling out Ocasio-Cortez for some of the things she says, repeatedly. And the social media progressive wing has been attempting, and really they feel led, like an unofficial head does feel like AOC, has been attempting to snap out the funding of the border wall, among other things. There's definitely a split divide in the Democratic Party right now. I'd say there's Democrats like you, which are, I would say, closer to Pelosi, definitely. And then there's the more new wave progressive. So Ocasio took to, I believe, I think she was in an interview with the Washington Post, I think. But she said, let me go to the beginning. She told them that when these comments first started, I kind of thought that she was just keeping the progressive. This is Ocasio. When these comments started, I kind of thought she was just keeping the progressive flank at more of an arm's distance in order to protect the more moderate members, which I understood. But the persistent singling out, it got to a point where it was just outright disrespectful. The explicit singling out of the newly elected women of color.
Also referred to as the squad. They've kind of coined themselves as the squad. It is 4 women. Yeah, it's kind of unofficially led by AOC. I don't have all 4 of the women's names in front of me right now, but yes, they are definitely getting a lot of press and headlines because they are kind of being lauded as the new face of the Democratic Party in a lot of ways, which, regardless of my feelings about that, this is a very specific conversation. So did Pelosi respond to that?
So Pelosi, let me get there. So many things that have been said. Pelosi essentially, I know, came out and said, speak to Twitter. Don't stop speaking to Twitter and speak to me. Like, if you want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, essentially told her to be a big girl. And then there's so much in the last couple days that I can't even keep up with everything that's been said. Overwhelmingly, it does seem like most of the people have rushed to Pelosi's defense. A lot of members of the Black Caucus have come out and been like, Pelosi's not racist. Kamala Harris came out and said Pelosi's not racist. Even Donald Trump came out and said Pelosi's not racist. I believe, what was the exact response? I know she said something. Do you have it by chance? I couldn't pull it up. Pelosi said?
When she said in the... Well, I don't even know what they call it. It wasn't a hearing, but she said exactly that. If you have a problem, don't take it to Twitter, take it to me. And then she also said separately, I think what made this inflammatory in the first place is Nancy Pelosi. Okay, so while there is a big split in the Democratic Party, there is also a lot of times that they all agree. Like, Congress is not super divided. There's been a couple things, a couple days, maybe a couple weeks ago, they were discussing funding for the internment camps or whatever, where they're putting immigrants, and they had a bill proposed to them, but everybody on the Democratic side of Congress, everybody voted for it with the exception of the 4 holdouts, which is the squad. The squad held out because they didn't think the conditions were good enough. They basically said that we're just caving to whatever conditions they gave us. We want to fight for more. Meantime, there's all these people in these camps that are still suffering. They could have definitely got something, but because of this, they're kind of getting nothing. And a lot of people have been asking Pelosi, as the Speaker of the House, what do you think about the squad? What do you think about the squad? What do you think about the squad? They're the big hot new thing. So she's been kind of put in a situation where she's had to
address it. And
not that she's singling them out. When somebody says, hey, what do you think about the color red? And you say, oh, red's not my favorite color, or red is my favorite color. Then you can't be like, why are they always talking about the color red? Well, they were fucking directly asked. They're not like, that's not the conversation they were necessarily set out to have, right?
Well, and then on top of it too, like you brought up a good point. I actually think Pelosi's politics are very similar to a lot of AOC's politics, actual politics. But Pelosi's a lot more veteran. Honestly, she comes off way more intelligent about the way she does it. They want a lot of the same things, but Pelosi's smart enough to go, I can't come out and just say this because I sound crazy. You know, like it sounds too extreme. It'll scare moderates. She's playing
politics
the smart way.
Yes.
I mean, realistically, she's doing what she has to do to get her agenda across.
Yes.
And I disagree a lot with Pelosi on a policy level, but she is a very intelligent person.
Oh yeah.
You don't get to her level without being extremely intelligent.
I don't believe that any of these women are anything less than probably incredibly intelligent.
I have my doubts about AOC, to be completely honest with you. Some of the stuff she says.
Yes. Now, is she a idealist? Does it border on a little bit radical? Yeah, but I just mean like, conventional intelligence, like whatever, however we quantify it with tests and grades and stuff like that. I'm sure she did really well. I don't think that's the same as making her emotionally intelligent, and it definitely doesn't give her experience. Experience is the thing that she lacks.
I feel like she's maybe ill-informed is a better word.
Sure,
I guess.
Sure.
Maybe intelligent. Maybe that's a better word for it.
Well, and
because I don't know
when she comes out and says that what's going on, that and compares them to concentration camps, it makes you look ignorant. I mean, there's no two ways about it.
And then she tried to walk it back, but you're like, no, I didn't mean it like that. You're like, no, you meant it like that. You even said never again. That's clearly a reference to that.
And she constantly says, my people back home, talking about Brooklyn. And it's like, do you think that that's representative of the entire country because the people in Brooklyn agree with you?
And the thing that cracks me up is, her poll numbers, AOC, is becoming quickly hated. Has been for a while.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
No.
So
most people were on the surface, and I was like, dude, you guys, since we've been talking, I'm like, dude, AOC is not what this party needs. And then AOC said, oh, do I think she's a racist? She does this thing that really bothers me, that when people do on left or right, is they make a claim and then they go, oh, but they're not. She goes, do I think she's a racist? No, not. No, I don't think she is. You're like, you literally just said she does something that's racist, but I don't think she's a racist. That's like going, well, this person, I've noticed they have a pattern of murdering people.
Yeah.
They're killing people. But then do I think they're a murderer? No, I'm not saying that. No, that's what you're saying. Own up to it and just say it. And pretty much everyone that I've seen has come out and said, this doesn't look good to fight between us, which I agree, right now. When Trump comes out and he looks like the rational person right now, you're doing something wrong. Yeah,
I think Pelosi's been very measured in her way of dealing with it. She did kind of scald them at that hearing or whatever when she was like, you can put that crap out on Twitter, but you should just come to us. If you have a problem, just talk to us about it. And I think that's where AOC got even more kind of emboldened, and they have gone back and forth.
I don't know if it was her or a staffer said that she's just jealous of AOC's Twitter followers.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God. Like, it to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, to me it feels like an adult arguing with a child is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. When somebody asked Pelosi about it, she says they took offense because I addressed, at the request of my members, an offensive tweet that came out of one of the members. Offices that referenced our blue dogs and our new Dems essentially as segregationists. Our members took offense at that. I addressed that. How they're interpreting it and carrying it to another place is up to them. She simply said she's the speaker of the House. She has to fucking speak on it. And there is a tendency now, and you and I have kind of talked about it before, and it happens a lot on Twitter and stuff. We just saw it happen with our friend Ashley the other day, where like if you say something that's dissenting to what somebody else wants to hear, they can just call you a racist and undermine everything that you say, because everybody doesn't like a racist. So if you say something that can in any way be interpreted that way and they play the racist card, there's so many people that are going to jump on board, you know?
Well, I don't know if you've heard the term, like, of the saying where they say race. It's a newer thing where they're talking about like racism is a way of saying I disagree with you. I disagree with the person to my right. So, and in there is a part of me that does have a hard time feeling bad for Pelosi, because she's used this rhetoric toward the right, you know, like, oh, people are racist and that's why. I feel like she's created a culture, and I feel like the left is slowly eating itself in this identitarian culture, because so like Pelosi can say, you know, anyone on the right is racist because she's farther left, but AOC is even more left, and she's farther up on the like victimhood intersectionality hierarchy. So she's allowed to say it about that. And if, you know, a person who came out who was a Muslim trans person, they could say it about AOC, you know, because they're farther down that intersectionalism. I feel like the problem is there has been a culture created by this, where this is the new way to argue. Me and you had a conversation off camera about a conversation I had about politics, and that kind of was the strategy that person used was, well, I don't want to hear your arguments or your interpretations. I'm in a different victim status, therefore I'm inherently right. And I feel like that culture has been created and used kind of like a sledgehammer very effectively by the left. But now I feel the difference is, I feel like Pelosi knows it's all bullshit, you know, and doesn't actually necessarily believe in all the intersectionality as much as she pretends. I think she's a very intelligent woman who uses it to get agendas across, because she's a politician. I don't think this is something that plagues the left. I think it plagues the right and the left. They use things to outrage to get what they want. I really do believe AOC believes 100% in this identitarian politics. So I actually think AOC might really believe Pelosi's racist.
She definitely seems like the kind of person, for better or worse, that has conviction. Like, I don't think that what she's doing is disingenuous, where I think politicians in general, like especially the good ones, they've been a little, they've probably become cynical. Like once you get into that system and you see the way that it works, and then we have these new radicals that are coming in that expect that they're going to change the world, and it's good because it's going to take a couple of them before before progress, I don't know.
Yeah,
how
but
to
change
say
isn't
it.
always good, you know?
No, but it can. It definitely can be. Yeah, and so this whole tweet that is being scrutinized has since been deleted. And what the tweet that Pelosi was referencing says, and this was sent out by Cortez's chief of staff, it describes centrist Democrats as new Southern Democrats that certainly seem hell-bent to do to black and brown people today what the old Southern Democrats did in the 40s. Well, fuck you. Fuck you. That is a trash fucking thing to say. That is the most... It is so goddamn offensive. Like, that is the most disgusting. So you can't even be middle of the road.
It's also downplaying the struggles of racism in the past, to me, exponentially.
Yeah, we're talking about the era of the Jim Crow laws and shit. Like, and this was
the birth of the Ku Klux coming out of the Southern Democrats.
Yeah, it's like ridiculous.
It shows a lack of understanding. It shows a lack of sensitivity. And let's be real. For the record, do you think Pelosi's racist? I don't.
No.
I don't see any evidence of it, personally.
No.
It kind of reminds me of, and so, you know, you're saying for better or worse, she does have conviction. I do think Ocasio does believe this. Mm-hmm. I think it's very different than Kamala Harris, who made the claim about a very similar claim, implied that Joe Biden was racist just before this. You know, I think Kamala Harris knows without a doubt that Joe Biden is not racist, but she's a smart politician. Mm-hmm. She's using this. She's using it. I don't know if AOC is like what do we call Kamala Harris is. I feel like she's of an age group where she's used that as a shield for a while for anything she disagreed with, to where she believes that, oh, you disagree with me? It couldn't be possibly that you disagree with my tact, my ideas. You disagree with my identity. Everything's seen as an assault on your identity. People who can disagree with me all the time, I don't assume it's because I'm white, or I don't assume, unless they blatantly say, well, you're a white man, you can't talk about this. Then I will assume that. But they have to blatantly state that. I have gay friends who disagree with me on things. I don't assume it's because I'm straight. I think AOC, and maybe I'm giving her too much credit, maybe she is just doing politics as usual. I do think she really does believe this, but I agree. That tweet is hyper offensive to everyone involved.
Do you think that the not assuming that it's because you're straight or white comes from that place of privilege, and that maybe if you did grow up in having the black experience, that if some white person said something to you that you considered to be derogatory, that your mind would default to that because it's so much of your experience that you kind of might have a chip on your shoulder because you've heard about racist people for so long?
I feel like I have a unique perspective on this. So I've talked about I'm a white guy who grew up in a mainly Mexican Hispanic neighborhood. I've actually been jumped with baseball bats for simply being white and been called gringo while I was being assaulted. You know, like actually have. Like this is something that's actually happened to me. I don't bring it up very often because I feel like it's inflammatory for the sake of inflammatory. My point being is I never have looked at Hispanic people and assume they're bad, first of all, because I think that's ignorant. These were bad people who assaulted me, not emblematic of an entire race. I'm also part Hispanic, so it'd be stupid of me. I know my family's Hispanic, you know? But I have a perspective of if a Hispanic person disagrees with me, I don't go, oh, it's because they really are racist and they hate white people.
But again, that's from your side of the coin, from the other perspective.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I've had blatant racism thrown at me, not even like subtle racism. Now, granted, as a culture, I'm what I see on TV. I would never say I'm a victim. I'm not trying to say that. I know, for example, conservative black people. They don't transcribe to identity politics at all. You're going to tell me their black experience is totally different than another black person's? I just have that hard to believe that one person can have an entirely. I mean, I do think everyone has different experiences. That's I feel like we have created a culture where your identity is everything. We are supposed to be proud of our race, which is fucking weird. You're proud of something that you literally didn't achieve. I shouldn't be proud of being white. Like when a white supremacist is proud of being white, it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
You were born white. Why should you be proud of that?
Yeah.
We place so much emphasis on identity right now that I feel like anyone, and maybe it is because they felt victimized in the past, that any disagreement with them is
you just default to that. And not you and not me.
No, I know what you mean.
You get what I mean. And I'm not saying that's a justification by any means. I'm just saying maybe it's a very natural human reaction to something like that.
I could actually see that point. If I'm being completely honest, I can understand that point. I really can. That is a natural reaction. But we have to be adults.
We have to rise above the emotional response, especially when you're in a position of power and you're so influential. And there is a lot of upplaying about how important what she's doing is, because Pelosi said, they've got all these social media followers. They're really big on the internet, but there's 4 of them, and that's exactly how many downvotes we got out of how many people, So, like, in the actual political sphere, they're not as influential as they are on Twitter.
Well, and we've covered this. Twitter's an extreme case of leftism, progressivism. It does not represent America. It doesn't even represent the modern Democrat. You are not maybe it represents the next generation of Democrats.
Maybe so.
I actually think it does. And I feel like the Overton window is shifting to where you and Pelosi will be called conservatives in a couple of years, and in a couple farther years, you'll both be alt-right. you know?
Yeah.
Because it's shifting enough to where if you stand still while that window shifts, it's gonna change. But they're playing to a base that is like 11% of the country
Right.
is believes in AOC's politics. And she hasn't done shit. I mean, let's be real. She won in a blue district where any blue person could have won, you know? And she won with a very few amount of votes. And we made her into this giant celebrity. And actually, I think AOC is great for the right now. I think she is great she's the best thing that could have happened to Republicans.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And we've talked about 2020 and the how much of a shit show it's going to be with Democrats just all pointing fingers at each other. You're not progressive enough. Whether it's the racism card, whether it's and always I want to step back. If I'm considered conservative in a couple of years, if I'm considered centrist, like whatever the definition, it doesn't change my heart. It doesn't change who I am. I know that I am not a person that has hate in my heart. You can call me whatever the fuck you want to. It doesn't change the fact that, like, I know who I am, And I think that if people can just, like, stand up for themselves as opposed to buckling under the pressure of somebody being like, you're racist, so now I have to prove to you I'm not racist. No, not really. I don't owe you fucking anything,
I feel like you hit the nail on the head. Because I take a lot of right positions on this, mainly sometimes for just literally the point of debate on here, because I think it makes it more interesting. But I'm not that far right from where you are,
right?
Like, I'm really not. I'm just slightly to the right of you, and I've actually swung a little bit left from where I used to be honest with you. I was super left growing up, swung right, and then I swung it back to being more moderate. And it's weird where I'm at now. Even 10 years ago, I would not be considered very right wing at all, from where I am. Like, I'm really not. Like, I'm small government, which makes me right wing, but I'm very pro gay marriage, which I have been forever. I always say I was pro gay marriage before Obama was pro gay marriage, to put in perspective. I'm pretty open to the trans movement. Do what you want. I don't care. I'm pretty open to. I'm married to an immigrant. I'm married to a black woman. I'm like, there's all these. I'm a progressive's wet dream.
Yeah, right.
And I feel like you're right, because I've been definitely, we were talking off camera about, conversations I've had where there's been either direct implications that I'm racist or slight nudging that I'm either racist or sexist, where literally my heart hasn't changed. And I feel the proper response is when someone calls you racist without evidence, because that's literally all we do anymore. We just say things without evidence. The proper response isn't to go into a defensive posture. When someone goes, oh, you're racist or you're sexist with no evidence, you don't go, well, no, because I have this. Literally, the response is, no, I'm not.
Right.
And you stick your feet in, because you're not. You know what you are.
Yeah, 100%. And before we transition out of this, because I do think this is a really fascinating conversation, I don't think that it's totally invalid that they're being singled out because they're women of color. I think that the liberals have put them on a pedestal because they are women of color, which in a way singled them out, and they've been getting lots of attention and lots of press because they are there's not a lot of young women of color in Congress. So I think that the celebrity of them has kind of led to them being singled out more than any political system. It's all the attention that's been brought to them by external factors that has kind of put this celebrity upon them. And yeah, when you're in a public forum, if you're in the public eye, there's going to be scrutiny. So I think in a way, they might not have been singled out because they were women of color by people who had a problem with that, but that they were singled out by people that wanted to prop it up. And as a result of that, the byproduct is that people are having to exclusively respond to questions about them.
I would think you're actually 100% right. I feel like they created this essentially, in my opinion, is an actual problem, but they created this problem by using them as like tokenism. Like, look,
Yes.
we have
Yes.
young women of cute color. Oh my God. And they earned a lot of celebrity unearned. That wasn't really earned, if I'm being honest. They hadn't really accomplished anything yet, but we were propping them up because of their identity. And then they opened their mouths, and I think Pelosi was like, oh crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, this isn't necessarily what's good for the party right now. Like, cool your jets, and has to address it. It's kind of a monster they created, and since they rose them up using their identity as the basis of it, it kind of makes sense that they can use that now as defense of it, because that's why. I don't want to say that's why they're there, because no, they won elections, but that's why I think the celebrity is partially the way it is.
Yeah, and Nancy Pelosi said, and I really respect this quote, she says, "What I said in the caucus yesterday got an overwhelming response from my members because they know what the facts are and what we've been responding to. We respect the value of every member of our caucus. The diversity of all of it is a wonderful thing. Diversity is our strength. Unity is our power." So what a great way to still use... It is a strength. I do believe diversity is a powerful thing. I think that it creates a good image, but we have to stop with the tokenism. I think that there's value to what you said, is like, can't it just be? Why does it have to be a political thing? And, I think that's a lot of, and this is a stupid aside, but I think that's a lot of the difference between Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel, and the way that people responded to both of them is, if you try to politicize it, there's going to be pushback from it, where if it just is, people will accept it. We've always loved kick-ass female action heroes ever since Ellen Ripley, ever since Sarah Connor. Like, there have been very strong female characters that everybody was cool with. Yeah.
Wonder Woman, or at the same time, Battle Angel Alita, strong kick-ass woman, got no blowback at the same exact time. Correct. Captain Marvel was in the theater, and I think you're right. Just let it speak for itself is stronger, and in my opinion, a lot more progressive. To let someone if they were not referring to, and she refers to herself obviously as a quote applied, but if they were not referring to the squad as women of color, and they weren't referring to themselves as women of color, they were just powerful people in Congress, then to me that's way more powerful.
Yeah, 100%
than actually
agree.
Being women of color.
Well, I think that was a good conversation. But now that we've got all of the fluff out of the way, I think it's time to talk about Jar Jar Binks. So, Jar Jar Binks, probably the most hated character in the entire Star Wars universe. If not him, then the little version of Anakin. You know what I mean? Like, there was so much vitriol. Yeah. Or even the sand thing. I guess there's a lot of hated stuff about the prequels, but Jar Jar seemed to have been the most enduring, to the point that the actor that played him, Ahmed Best, considered killing himself because of how much people singled this character out and hated on him. And that's just sad. And I always wondered why. Was he that much worse than C-3PO was in the original trilogy? I mean, I don't get where all the hate comes from. From your perspective, I don't even know, dude. How do you feel about the prequels?
I am the biggest prequel defender on the planet.
Interesting.
Do I think they're good? No, I think there's a lot of problems with them. Newsflash, there's a lot of problems with all the Star Wars films.
Correct.
And to me, if you love Ewoks, you have no right to dislike. You have a right to dislike, but you have no right to attack Jar Jar the way it is. The difference is, we saw Ewoks when we were kids. Yeah. Ewoks are dumb space teddy bears. So we grew up with them and we accepted them. If you talk to younger fans who were kids when they saw the Phantom Menace, they don't hate Jar Jar. They don't care about him. They thought he was kind of cool. It was, for me, blind nostalgia is why people hate the prequels, but also, I mean, there's some problems with prequels, but specifically Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way that's really why the OT gets so much critical praise and the prequels do not, is because if you're watching it through the lens of a child, You give all that stuff a pass. People like comic relief typically, but then you grow up, you get more cynical, you start to be more critical in your viewing and all this stuff, and you see this character and it doesn't jive with your current sensibilities. But ultimately, Star Wars was made for fucking kids. It is children's entertainment. We've propped it up and given it this thing. And don't get me wrong, I am a Star Wars fan, but I'm not a super enthusiastic Star Wars fan anymore. I'm a little burnt out on it, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I'm going to go see Rise of the Skywalker, but I can barely muster up any enthusiasm because Disney makes me sick. I'm so tired of them. I'm not going to see The Lion King. I'm not giving them my money for any more of these live action fucking retellings of the classic movies that I love. But they have lost. They are creatively bankrupt. They're only putting out surefire hits, and it's tired, it's fucking played out. Star Wars, same deal. Marvel, same fucking deal. It's all the same over and over and over, and it works, and it's going to continue to work, and it's because people are terrible. Like, we just don't even understand. We're just being recycled the same. I mean, I guess we do understand. I guess we like that, to just be force-fed the same shit over and over again. But that's a whole separate conversation. The thing about Jar Jar, to me, is exactly what you said. The Ewoks, you can point to the Ewoks. When C-3PO gets broken into pieces and Chewie's carrying him on his back and like midway through Empire, I believe it is, it's silly. Like, C-3PO's always been a goofy-ass character, and people don't look at him through the same lens. I have to ask, because I think because this blew up on Twitter, there's got to be the racial element to it as well, right? People look at Jar Jar and they think he's a stereotype of the black fool.
I feel like, I don't know, for me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like if you look at that, I never once looked at that and saw a black fool. I feel like if you look at that and you see it, maybe that says something about the way you view black people, because that never entered my head.
What about the man, I can't even remember what they were, like the kind of frog people
that had the very Asian?
Yeah.
Those, to me, I mean, definitely seemed, because the way they talked was like almost like an impersonation, about an Asian impersonation, you know?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the little winged guy. I can't believe I can't remember any of these characters' names right now. The little winged guy that is the junk trader, where they find Annie on Tatooine at the beginning. He like flies around. He's the guy.
Not Sebulba, but the other guy.
Yes, correct. That's what I was thinking. Not Sebulba. What the fuck's his name? That guy. People have said
Watto.
Yeah. Watto. One of those is right. And he maybe was a bit of a stereotypical character as well. I can see.
What would he be stereotyping though? I never even saw a connection for that.
Arabs.
Oh, I can maybe see that. Like that. See, that never even popped into my head, to be completely honest with you.
Well, and we go back even further to
But if we're gonna say like he's Arabs, couldn't we easily say the Jawas were too?
Sure.
From the original, isn't that just as offensive?
I agree with you. And if you look at Lord of the Rings, if you look at Tolkien's work, it's very clear that the dwarves were kind of they kind of were a stand-in for Jews. And, Tolkien will say that was not intentional and that people read it after the fact, but there are so many allusions to it, and people didn't look at that as being derogatory, because stereotypes in themselves might not be racist. It just might be broad stroke. Like, I think the dwarves were in a way heroes in The Hobbit. I don't think that he was villainizing them. Yeah, they did have a lust for gold. That was like one of their biggest traits, but they were also a race without a home. They were trying to make their way back to wherever Smaug had the Oakenstone, whatever. I sound like I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I normally do, but I never like. It's our sensibilities that are changing, and it's kind of interesting to go back with our new sensibilities and approach any works of fiction prior to 2015, because so much fucking things have changed. You go and watch the original Hangover movie, when Bradley Cooper says, paging Dr. Faggot, and it was in the fucking trailers. People, like, that was fine 5 years ago. Now it's completely gross and offensive, and I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying our sensibilities have changed so much that it's hard to hold.
You can't hold art from the past to, or anything from the past to today's standard, because it'll all fail.
Do you think that there's going to be a time in the decades, and we've kind of talked about it before, I don't know if it's actually realistic, but that society is going to swing back the other way and that we're going to reject all of this? Or do you think that it's going to continue to move in that direction?
No, I think it's already starting to swing. I mean, you look at people in high school now, they're the most conservative generation, more than baby boomers were.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're the most. I mean, they're still liberal, but they're more conservative than baby boomers were at that time. And people get conservative as they grow older, and so they are the most. I know all my, like, not all, but like a good chunk of my like younger friends and younger, like, I'm talking like family members that are not like 20, but like 16. They hate all this stuff. They hate it. The everything racist stuff. They're so over it. They're so sick of being, because now if you want to be counterculture, being edgy and pushing the limit is not counterculture. Like pushing like more conservative or traditional values is counterculture.
Yeah.
It's modern counterculture.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're going to definitely see a swing. To bring it back to Jar Jar, do you think that's what it was, or do you think it was just people found him kiddie and annoying?
So, so from this article on the Washington Post, the author says there's a simple explanation behind the much deplored Star Wars character's light speed rise to the top of Twitter's list of popular topics Monday morning. An infographic encouraged fans to discover what their life in a galaxy far, far away would look like. Birth months corresponded to each event, the first letter of the Twitter user's name, of characters. If you're Gregory, born in February, for example, you were frozen in carbonite by an Ewok. A lot of people's name starts with a J, which mapped them to none other than Jar Jar. So my name, for example, would have come back with Jar Jar, and he's just always been such a point of contention that people love talking about Jar Jar. I mean, here we are talking about him right now, and to your point, I think that it was that he was a bumbling idiot that people didn't like. I don't think it was the caricature of his race that is what bothered people about him. I think specifically it was when he was like working on Annie's pod racer, and he gets his mouth stuck in the electrical current, and he's like, he's a bumbling fool. But that is a very common, popular archetype in fantasy.
It's a very Star Wars archetype, even.
Yes. Yes.
Well, and I think you brought up a good point, is we grew up and we went back. I feel like the prequels there's things that are wrong with it. Don't get me wrong. I think the acting's pretty horrendous at times. I feel like the overuse of CG is pretty bad. I feel like some of that, the actual plot to me is more interesting than the original trilogy. Actual plot, if you took J.J. Abrams and had him direct the prequels, I think they'd be better than the originals, personally.
I can see where you're coming from. They are much more sophisticated in their plotting. Yeah. There's much more on Lucas's mind than just this fairy tale archetypal fantasy. He tried to integrate politics in it, and a lot of people like to complain about the conversations of politics, which, like you, I think I find that shit fascinating. I like to see the way that the economy is working in this galaxy far, far away. It does allow people to draw more correlations between what's happening in the world at that particular time. And
also, a story of someone's fall from grace is always a more interesting story to me.
Sure.
Sure. That's just an interesting plot about them becoming the bad guy, which is what the prequels are about. I feel like, I feel like the prequels actually, tonally, to me, captured a lot of what the original trilogy did. I feel like with The Force Awakens, and why The Force Awakens is so successful, and I've said this numerous times, Force Awakens didn't attempt to match the tone of the original movies. Force Awakens attempted to match the tone we think the original movies are as we've gotten older, the way we look back at them. They really matched a tone of a film that doesn't exist. These dark, gritty Star Wars films that are real serious, those films actually don't exist anywhere on film. they just only exist in people's minds because of we saw them when we were young. And when you see Empire when you're young, that's a dark movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like going as so I'm one of those people. I don't mind when I'm rewinded that I like kiddie shit. Like, it doesn't bother me. I'm cool. You know, this is a little kids movie. I watch cartoons all the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like as an adult, sometimes people who grew up with this stuff, they watch it and they're like, oh, this is dumb and slapsticky and kiddie. Oh, I'm above this. Not really. You like the originals. You know, they're kind of in that same vein to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I kind of see where you're coming from about The Force Awakens. I felt like, it's slavishly beholden to A New Hope in particular, or AKA Star Wars, the original movie. I personally think that The Force Awakens is the best Star Wars movie, but because they had so much resources, I mean, how could it not be? You know, it brought back that operatic tone. It very much is rooted in nostalgia. Like you said, that I think that it tries to have it both ways, and I think it succeeds pretty well in that, where I think The Last Jedi stumbled a little bit to try to have it both ways. And when I say both ways, I mean this more gritty reinterpretation of what Star Wars was originally, while still trying to pander to children. So you've got the very grown-up, very mature stuff between Kylo and Rey and Luke, and then you've got this other thing with Canto Bight that they feel like they're two completely different movies trying to coexist with each other. I love all of the actual Skywalker shit and really couldn't have cared less about the rebellion side of it and the spaceship, you know, with the Imperial shit like coming up on their back and they're going to run out of fuel. It's the first episode of Battlestar Galactica for any of you guys that know that shit. It really is, and that's fine, but I guess the reason why I say that is because they are trying to appease the adults who were fans of the OT while still trying to bring in these new fans, and as a byproduct of that, a lot of the stuff from the prequels has been left behind, which I don't know if that's necessarily fair, because to an entire generation, that was Star Wars to them.
I agree. That was Star Wars. And I think you're 100% right with Last Jedi. One of my things that I know when I was doing movie reviews, I didn't understand the hate for Last Jedi. I didn't like it, to be honest with you, but I didn't hate it. I felt like it was so painfully accurate to the original trilogy, even in the way of the line delivery, like where they're like, a ship's attacking us, sir, coming up to our side. Like, you watch that, it's weird the way they do it. It's almost off-putting because it was like trying to go so much for that while at the same time having a lighthearted tone that matched, to me, the prequels, which also kind of matched the original. I feel like Force Awakens is the outlier, and I would agree is the best Star Wars film, but it's the outlier. That and Empire are actually the outliers of if you look at the entire franchise, that and Empire are the outliers.
Yeah, they're the two. And I struggle to really call The Force Awakens a good movie. I think it was very calculated, and they did it really well. They executed it from a technical perspective better than any Star Wars movie had done prior to that. Empire, I think, is actually like a good movie. I think it's really open for debate if any of the other ones are actually good movies. I actually like Rogue One quite a bit as well. I thought Rogue One was pretty fucking good, but Solo I thought was trash personally, you know?
Solo, I loved elements of it, and I hated elements of it. You know, like there were some things about Solo I absolutely loved. I think it's personally way better than Last Jedi is. But I actually really enjoyed Solo, but there were parts of it that just felt shoehorned in that you're like, why are we, like the whole droid rebellion part, you're like, why is this even in this movie? Yeah
100%. It was a little weird, and I like her a lot. I didn't know who she was at the time. Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
It's kind of funny too, that thing, her whole thing is about like being free, you know? And she ends up being a slave with her mind put inside the ship for the rest of the franchise.
100%.
It's kind of funny to me.
And who knew that was a fucking thing? What? It's got the soul of a robot in it?
They've never addressed that there was like an onboard AI system ever.
No.
And you're like, oh, okay. Like that whole part, if you take that part out of the movie, it's an exponentially better film.
Yeah, it really is. I agree. it's one of those weird things that we do. We find something to channel our vitriol towards, and then everybody else jumps on board. Like Jacob Lloyd, young Anakin, had a very troubled early adulthood. I don't know what he's up to now. I don't even know if, I think he's still alive, but he definitely had like bad stints with the law and all of this kind of stuff. And it's really weird because we can't separate art from artists sometimes. And when you constantly hit this character so hard over and over, especially if it's the only thing these actors are known for, they're going to take it to heart. And it's just a shame because that dude, he got work out of it. He was a good motion capture performer. He definitely did the physical comedy of cartoons really well. And I think that's what he was supposed to do. Correct. And that's why I feel like to single out performers in a movie that was directed by a person who was completely disinterested in the actor side of it. He could not give a shit about that because he was so hyper-focused on the visual effects, pushing that technology forward, having this more complex story about, the trade and all of that kind of stuff. His focus was not on the actors, and supposedly he wasn't big on doing retakes, and people would ask him for guidance, and he's just like, just do whatever, just say the line,
Yeah, he wanted to write a really cool script and build a world, which I think he was successful in that element.
I agree.
Feel like everywhere else is where those films fall.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. I agree with what you said that if it would have had a different director, if George would have just been responsible for the storytelling and they would have actually had somebody who worked well with actors come in, they could have done something really special. As it stands, when the prequels came out, I enjoyed all three of them. I think they going back.
The first, but the other two are great.
Okay, and I think of the three, my least favorite is Attack of the Clones. The second one.
A lot of people hate that one. I actually really like it, but I do think the best is definitely
Sith.
Sith, yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. And even that's got silly parts in it. I think the reason why I rejected Clone Wars or Attack of the Clones as much as I did, and obviously I'm not alone in this, a lot of people have talked about it to great length, but when your central romance, the whole motivating factor of the character is so bad, it's hard to get behind it,
Yeah, I agree, because there's some really cool moments like where he's sitting, like cool moments on paper.
Yeah.
Where he's sitting there and he's talking about how, he wants people need to be told what to do. And she's like, and it's coming from a very good place, where I feel like most authoritarians, not most, but a lot of authoritarians sometimes seem well-meaning when they start off,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, who's going to tell him? Well, I'll tell him because I know better than everyone. It's a really cool moment that is so painful to watch.
Yeah.
I'm like, there is a scene there that could be one of the most powerful Star Wars scenes, and you just threw it away.
All right, man.
It's no chemistry.
We just now ran over the hour-and-a-half mark, so we're going to wrap it up for this week. But we do appreciate you guys coming by, as always. And, as always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on these topics. Make sure to leave those down in the comments section. We can engage in a constructive conversation, if you want. Or we can go the other way with shit. This depends on what you're about. It's fine. But, yeah, we do appreciate you coming by. I will post links down in the description so that you can check us out everywhere we're available. And, yeah, I guess that's about it for me. Caleb, anything else?
Sebulba is a pretty cool character.
Sebulba, yeah, he was. He was the racer, the badass racer. Yeah.
He also says Bantapuru, which is the best part.
What does that mean? Bantha shit?
Yep.
Nice. All right. And on that note, thank you guys for coming by. Until next time, and on behalf of both of us, be terrible.